So once again, happy Friday. Here we are, the temple, the Buddha Center. Let's get started like we normally do. Short period of bell meditation. So wherever you are behind your avatar, please get into a nice meditation posture. And as I ring the Ching bell, just focus on the sound of the bell. Really get that deep listening going. Really get that concentration going so we can all absorb some Dharma today. Chances are you will get distracted. When it happens, I just want you to gently bring your attention back to the sound of the bell. So short meditation, short pause, 3 recitations, on with the talk for today. So I'll give you a moment, get into a nice meditation posture, and we'll begin at the sound of the bell. I go for refuge to the Buddha, the teacher. I go for refuge to the Dharma, the teaching. I go for refuge to the Sangha, the taught. I take refuge in the Buddha. I take refuge in the Dharma. I take refuge in the Sangha. I have taken refuge in the Buddha. I have taken refuge in the Dharma. I have taken refuge in the Sangha. 3 pure precepts. Cease to do harm. Do only good. Do good for others. Bodhisattva vow. However innumerable all beings are, I vow to lead them all. However inexhaustible my delusions are, I vow to extinguish them all. However immeasurable the Dharma teachings are, I vow to master them all. However endless the Buddha's way is, I vow to follow it completely. Swaha. There we go. All right. So today, something a little different. I like to do this right at the beginning of right around summertime and the end of spring, because this is when people are starting to get out into the woods and enjoy nature and really commune with the earth, if you will. So sometime around this time every year, I like to do this one. It's called the Smokey the Bear Sutra, which is why I have the visual aid here to my right. Of course, that's Smokey the Bear, or at least one artist's rendering of Smokey the Bear. So again, this is the Smokey the Bear Sutra. This was written in 1966 by a gentleman named Gary Snyder, who I'll tell you more about later. I want you to experience this, and also to know that from the moment that he published it, it's always said, reproduce free forever. So he meant for this to go out into the world, if you will, and have its impact. So again, 1966, Smokey the Bear Sutra. Once in the Jurassic, about 150 million years ago, the great Sun Buddha, in this corner of the infinite void, gave a discourse to all the assembled elements and energies. To the standing beings, the walking beings, the flying beings, and the sitting beings. Even the grasses, to the number of 13 billion, each one born from a seed, assembled there. A discourse concerning enlightenment on the planet Earth. In some future time, there will be a continent called America. It will have great centers of power called such as Pyramid Lake, Walden Pond, Mount Rainier, Big Sur, Everglades, and so forth, and powerful nerves and channels such as Columbia River, Mississippi River, and Grand Canyon. The human race in that era will get into troubles all over its head and practically wreck everything in spite of its own strong, intelligent Buddha nature. The twisting strata of the great mountains and the pulsings of volcanoes are my love burning deep in the earth. My obstinate compassion is schist and bauxite and granite, to be mountains, to bring down the rain. In that future American era, I shall enter a new form, to cure the world of loveless knowledge that seeks with blind hunger, and mindless rage eating food that will not fill it. And he showed himself in the true form of Smokey the Bear. A handsome, smoky-colored brown bear standing on his hind legs, showing that he is aroused and watchful. Bearing in his right paw the shovel that digs to the truth beneath appearances, cuts the roots of useless attachments, and flings damp sand on the fires of greed and war. His left paw, in the mudra of comradely display, indicating that all creatures have the full right to live to their limits, and that of deer, rabbits, chipmunks, snakes, dandelions, and lizards, all grow in the realm of the Dharma. Wearing the blue work coveralls symbolic of slaves and laborers, the countless men oppressed by a civilization that claims to save, but often destroys. Wearing the broad-brimmed hat of the West, symbolic of the forces that guard the wilderness, which is the natural state of the Dharma and the true path of man on earth. All true paths lead through mountains. With a halo of smoke and flame behind, the forest fires of the Kali Yuga fires, caused by the stupidity of those who think things can be gained and lost, whereas the truth, all is contained, vast and free, in the blue sky and the green earth of one mind. Round-bellied, to show his kind nature and that the great earth has food enough for everyone who loves her and trusts her. trampling underfoot wasteful freeways and needless suburbs, smashing the worms of capitalism and totalitarianism. Indicating the task, his followers, becoming free of cars, houses, canned goods, universities, and shoes, master the three mysteries of their own body, speech, and mind, and fearlessly chop down the rotten trees and prune out the sick limbs of this country, America, and then burn the leftover trash. Wrathful but calm, austere but comic, Smokey the Bear will illuminate those who would help him, but for those who would hinder him or slander him, he will put them out. Thus, his great mantra, I dedicate myself to the universal diamond, be this raging fury, be destroyed. And he will protect those that love the woods and rivers, gods and animals, hobos and madmen, prisoners and sick people, musicians, playful women, and hopeful children. And if anyone is threatened by advertising, air pollution, television, or the police, they should chant Smokey the Bear's war spell. Drown their butts. Crush their butts. Drown their butts. Crush their butts. And Smokey the Bear will surely appear to put the enemy out with his Vajra shovel. Now, those who recite this sutra and then try to put it in practice will accumulate merit as countless as the sands of Arizona and Nevada. Will help save the planet Earth from the total oil slick. Will enter the age of harmony of man and nature. Will win the tender love and caresses of men, women, and beasts. Will always have ripened blackberries to eat and a sunny spot under a pine tree to sit at. And in the end will win the highest perfect enlightenment. Thus we have heard. So that's the Smokey the Bear Sutra, 1966, written by Gary Snyder. Often, when I sit with you guys and talk about sutras, I talk about how, sutras that were written thousands of years ago, and we bring them forward into our contemporary time, then we have to look at metaphors and allegories and stuff that we may not understand, or we may have to learn what they mean, right? Because they don't connect with our culture and our context now. Well, this was done in 1966, which, is a while ago, but not that long ago. I was just beginning my hippie phase in 1966, so I don't remember even hearing about this. But here we have what Gary Snyder calls a sutra, and even within this, even though it's close to our time, right, and it's certainly our culture, there are metaphors and stuff in here that you might not get. Now, I have a copy. I'm going to give a copy out to everybody so you can read it later and maybe have some fun with it, look some stuff up or whatever. But let me tell you some context to why Gary Snyder even wrote this in the first place. Then I want to tell you about Gary Snyder himself. He's a pretty interesting guy. So some context and culture to Gary Snyder's wonderful call to action. Smokey the Bear is the creation of a gentleman named Albert Stale, who in 1945 he brought this iconic animal to life. He was the first one to draw Smokey the Bear. And the core idea arose from the bear that was then used as a symbol of the Forest Service and of the War Advertising Council in 1944. It wasn't until 1950, though, that Smokey became a living symbol. There was a wildfire. It happened in Lincoln National Forest in New Mexico. And the story goes that there was a ranger that rescued this burned cub and, nursed him and got him healthy again. And it was all over the news. and it spurred the imagination of the American public, and Smokey became the symbol of caring for the environment, right? Especially forest fires, right? When we think of Smokey the Bear, man, we think forest fires. The 1960s arrived, and with it, lots of environmental issues, or we started to become more aware of these environmental issues. These are issues that lead to a heightened awareness of the damage that was being done to the planet. It was a big time for the ecology movement. These are some of the things that happened between 1960 and 1966 that were some of the things that spurred Gary Snyder to write this. There was a catastrophic coolant loss at Fermi nuclear reactor outside of Detroit, Michigan. That was in 1960. Rachel Carson published an extremely famous book on the environmental movement called Silent Spring. It's a book that merged conservation and public health and brought them into the environmental movement. It's a very famous book. World Wildlife Fund is founded in the early 60s. The Nuclear Test Ban Treaty between the US and the USSR was written, ratified, and agreed upon, but it only halted above ground tests. There were still massive underground tests being done that were still spreading radiation into water tables and under the ground. Air pollution in New York City, I think this was 1963 or 64, caused an incident of such a fog, such a heaviness in the air, 80 people died from the air pollution. The Sierra Club, at this in about mid-60s, the Sierra Club appeals to stop a dam from being built that would flood the Grand Canyon. And the ad copy said this time it's the Grand Canyon they want to flood. The Grand Canyon. That spoke loudly to people because, I don't know, if you've been to the Grand Canyon, there's not water in it. So that's a good thing. Fermi nuclear plant, again, has a coolant release, and this is when the Fermi nuclear reactor actually partially melts down. So this is just a sampling of things that happened in the first half of the 60s. It's no wonder that so many people became so aware of the potential and the real damage being done to the planet and experienced suffering and a call to action. And that's what the Smokey the Bear Sutra was for Gary Snyder. It was his call to action that he was putting out. But who is this guy, this Gary Snyder? Well, he's born in 1930. He's widely known as a poet. He's also an essayist and an environmental activist. By the way, he's still living. He won the Pulitzer Prize for Poetry in 1975. And he's called the Poet Laureate of Deep Ecology, meaning he wrote a lot of poems about the environmental movement, not just the Smokey the Bear Sutra. He was a member of the Beat Writers, along with his friends Jack Kerouac, Neil Cassidy, and that whole bunch. In 1955, Snyder entered the first Zen Institute of America, and his Zen practice continues today. He teaches, he offers the Dharma. He's still very involved, and he's 90. So he was active during this environmental movement of the 60s, and that's what brought about the Smokey the Bear Sutra.